Hello, curling fans. I am just coming in from watching another U.S. team. I was watching U.S. Pakistan in the cricket T20 World Cup. U.S. lost there, rooting for the U.S. here. It's USA Sweden in the gold medal game, mixed doubles curling. We're going to have all the action right here. I put a strategy board up so I can give you shot by shot updates. You will hear my cat. She will meow. That's just part of the action here. If you are new to curling, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to say what is going on here. We'll talk some strategy. We'll talk some curling in general. We can talk about the men's and women's coming up, but most importantly, we're going to talk about this game where we have Sweden, which is Isabella and Rasmus Rano. Sorry, that is how you pronounce it. There's a thing where the athletes pronounce their own names, and that AA sound in Swedish is more like an O. And we have the United States with Corey Dropkin, Corey TC. Sweden, confusingly as always, playing the Red Stones, and U.S. has the hammer because they came in as the higher seed. Who should be favored in this game? Who is favored? At sportsbooks online, the U.S. was the favorite, probably by more than they should be, but I would say they are a slight favorite in this game. Corey had a great season this year on tour. So based on form, I would say they're better. Both these teams are former world champions, though. They've both beaten each other multiple times, I'm sure, given their success at the highest levels and on tour. And Corey TC comes right back down, pops one right on top of that rock top button. They'll update if you needed one. That might have popped up on my screen. I don't know. Let's just see. What do we got? 9 viewers already. Excellent. I won't even check. I'll check in between ends because that'll take away the strategy board. So yeah, Dull Geek. I do think the U.S. is a slight favorite here. Given that they have hammer to start the game because they're the higher seed, that makes them a slightly bigger favorite. More so in 4-player curling. How sustainable is that as Rasmus puts one right on the lid too right here? How sustainable is that? God, I mean, they've been the highest percentage team all week. That level of play, I believe they both at some point were throwing over 90%, would be hard to keep up. Sustainable over like a whole tournament, you're not going to throw 90+% in mixed doubles curling for an entire event. You just don't get quite the percentages you do in the 4-player game, even when you're playing great. For one game, of course, they can do that again. If this was like a best of 7, no, they wouldn't throw over 90% for the best of 7, most likely. Corey Dropkin now throwing his first rock. Gonna give these rocks on the top a little bump. So this goes back. Everything else moves up slightly. And it looks a little more like... There, we'll get these all. Something like this. I will double check who's won. I believe Sweden with the red rocks still sitting 1 here, but let me double check that when the rocks come in. Mixed doubles, if you haven't watched it, moves fast, much faster than the 4-player version of curling. I'm watching this on Peacock. I think USA has coverage in the US. CBC has coverage. CBC Gem in Canada as well. Lots of ways to watch this. Yeah, red's still counting. I'll make that a little clearer. Let's just, yeah, put that a little higher. And so Rasmus throws a guard up around here. Big line of rocks. Not rare in mixed doubles, but I think some people who watch it once or twice are like, this is what always happens. It doesn't. It's a very well played first end so far by both teams. A lot of makes. Rasmus and Isabella, brother and sister for the Swedish team here. Corey and Corey, despite having the same name, not married. Corey Dropkin's fiance is here. Corey TC's husband, I believe, is in the audience as well. Dropkin throws the double peel, gets both of these reds out. Opening things up a bit for the U.S. Been watching curling since it came back to the Olympics. Understand it at the kindergarten level. Looking forward to learning more. Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely talk a bit about that. Doubles curling is more on the tactical side, as in like on these ends where they're not using the power play. We'll definitely talk about the power play later. You're going to see a lot of the same strategy. Playing to control the forefoot, the front of the button. So the U.S. right now pretty happy with this stone, even though red is sitting 1. That is why Sweden continues to guard. How many shots left? There will be 2 shots left each. 2 shots left for the U.S., 1 shot left for Sweden with the red rocks. So Corey Dropkin throwing his last rock now. One issue here is that sometimes on the strategy board, the rocks disappear off to the side. I am short a yellow rock or 2, so hopefully that doesn't matter. Hopefully I can. No double specific slang for peeling that pre-placed guard, Charles. Charles, a member. See Donna over there, a member of my club at Nutmeg. So they peel off this guard. Yellow rock went away, so I don't have to make another yellow rock go somewhere, which should be fine now because that if yellow scores, I can move this yellow guard on their last one. So disappearing rocks not coming into play here. 1 rock left each. Sweden without hammer has red, likely to throw another guard here and make the U.S. try to make a run on. So hypothetically, a guard here. The U.S. may have to go run these back, remove that stone for a shot at 1. If they wish to do so, they may also be able to draw the edge of the button because this red rock is behind the T-line. There is room around this guard for sure. Isabella Rano throwing a guard that's a bit high, but should get the job done. Comes in around here. This U.S. rock a little further off the T-line, but these rocks are bigger than they would be in real life. It's a little hard to show sometimes exactly where they are. Like this rock is taking up way too much of the room between the center line and the forefoot line. So there is room to draw around, but they are looking at either running this in or running this in. If you run the yellow in and you really get things moving right, this is a little off here. So there is the chance this comes off of this and goes away. This bounces off. Maybe you get 2 or 3. Long shot, but it's hard to give up more than 1 here if you run in the yellow, because this red into this yellow should move this red too. And it looks like that's what they're going for. Corey TC playing this yellow rock back. It looks like normal. Maybe control weight. Pretty close. Bang, 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 bang for 1 yellow. USA on the board first with 1. Nothing wrong with that. Better than giving up a steal there for sure. 1 is like if you're new to curling, 1 in a close game is sort of the neutral result. Neither team going to get much of an advantage out of the hammer team getting 1 early. Game moves on to the second. We'll have the U.S. Throwing first. Sweden will have the hammer with the red rocks. And I'm going to try something in between ends. I am going to try to pop an ad in. See what happens. if NBC and Peacock can run Wegovy ads, I can run an ad too. We'll come back in a second. My hair is a mess. So let me take a quick look here. 28 viewers. Thanks for coming out here. We will follow this game shot by shot. Let's go back to the strategy board. Claudia Shani says hello and thank you. Thank you for coming. Happy to have you here. U.S. throwing their first rock. Corey TC throwing her first rock. I have to think because I'm a lefty. That's the intern. Intern coming around this side. And it looks like they're going to play it down to almost a freeze. Yeah, a bit of a corner freeze. Over curls just an inch or two, but that's a good spot. Beautiful spot for the rock. We'll get our first rock. Excuse me, Isabella Rano. I see on the closed captioning they're talking about how you really want to get 2 or more with the hammer. Not wrong. Very true. There is a bit of a traditionally it was seen that like, and it's a little different in 4-player and doubles too, but traditionally it was seen that like forcing when you don't have the hammer was a win for the team without the hammer. I don't like teaching that to new curlers because it just doesn't really track when you look at numbers and stuff that plays out. What it does track as it's not a bad result for anyone in a close game. And if you don't have the hammer, giving up, making sure you don't give up more than 1 is your first goal for sure. So I'm going to move everything back slightly here because that red rock that Rasmus just threw is right on the pin. Kind of like this. I hate when they do that. Imagine those all frozen together. What makes this a good spot? Well, what it does is it pretty much shuts this rock out of the end, right? To remove this, you also have to remove this one. So, and it also, because the U.S. does not have the hammer, because the U.S. is not going last, another great rock by Corey Dropkin, who's just been absolutely on fire. He comes right down to this. So this rock, even a better spot than this one. When you have the hammer, ideally, if you're going last, you would like to be able to use as much of the house as possible to score. Now, in doubles with the pre-placed rocks, it's not always easy, but you would still prefer it. When the non-hammer team makes rocks like this and this, they are saying the scoring is going to happen behind our guard in this little area here, unless you make a really, a couple good plays where you make a mistake. So they're really shutting down the area in which the hammer team can score, even if they don't steal. Now, what Sweden's about to do here is they are going to hit this rock because they want the opportunity to reopen things, and they did just that. Whacked it out of the way. What we call a peel. So now with 3 rocks left for each team, we have these 4 rocks lined up. Red is sitting 1. And now it's a little bit of a game of angles. I want to show this is not really behind this one anymore, though. So the one thing USA has to be careful about now is that if you really hit this hard, this red will stay, the yellow will go, this red will stay. You could have 2 red rocks staying. So rather than hit it themselves, they're throwing another guard. Sometimes the team without hammer will throw guards even with the hammer team sitting 1. Because they do not want to put a bigger end in play. The guard comes down around here. Good guard, covers that yellow rock. Now to make something, to get rid of this yellow rock, because this red one's right behind it, You would have to hit it fairly hard. This one, there's a little separation here. So this guard does a good job of preventing that from happening. But the danger is that this red rock is not going anywhere. Because this one's just a little off nose, Sweden throws whack the peel again. That is unfortunate, James. Yeah, old school curling radio. I mean, I've heard, I think it's been, probably 50 years or more. I think Canada had curling on the radio, like the Briar on the radio in the old days, I believe. If you don't have Peacock, I'm glad I can help. If you do have Peacock, watch Peacock. I assumed they would put this game on USA or something. I wonder. I don't have the ability to put numbers on the stone, Dolgeek. I'm sorry. Yeah, unfortunately. I am using a strategy board at howardgriffin.org. I've been using this for ever since I started doing content. I've used this strategy board. It's great. There are a lot of good tools at Howard Griffin's site. The guard goes back, by the way, just directly in front. 2 rocks left for Sweden with red, 1 rock left for the US with yellow. I am going to run ads between ends, hopefully so that has as little disruption as possible, but to make a little revenue on this. We also have super chats and stuff. If you're enjoying the stream, feel free to do a super chat. Now, with this rock so close, this is a good, and it does spin on. So what Sweden plays is a much softer peel. They do remove the yellow stone, but they played it soft. So this will roll towards, and it bit the edge of the house over here. This rock is not particularly likely to score, but because there are ways, if the US does not put up a good guard or do something else, if you could ever throw big weight and get rid of both yellows, assuming the US somehow doesn't throw anything here that guards this well enough, now you have an extra potential counter out here on the wing. When you have the hammer, unless you just have no way of getting rid of all the other team's stones, every rock in the house is a potential counter. See, I wish I could. I do wish I could put numbers on the stones. I don't have the ability to do that with this strategy board. Corey TC throwing the last rock for the US now. Welcome, Big Chris, who said P. And that's all. That could be a typo. That could be an animal typing. My cat does it all the time. Or it could have been an accidental single message. Okay. Guard comes in for Corey TC. Overcurls a touch. But it overcurls a touch to the correct side. If you were going to leave something, you want to show this side of the yellow, because it's much harder to remove it this way, just physically, right? It's going to hit this red and lose a lot of momentum. If you hit it on this side, it's going to hit the red and be able to scoot off of it because it's sort of over what we'd call the nose, the center point of this red rock. So likely this is going to be a draw to the edge of the button. There is a bit more of the, again, these stones are a little too big. Isabella Rana has a spot to hit here. Not an easy one. Rock coming in now. Rasmus sweeping all the way, but lately just cleaning. Must be close. He's just cleaning. Just cleaning, trying to bring it in there. Might be a touch big. Might be a touch big. No, comes right down right down there, gets the 2. Sweden takes a deuce. It's a 2-1 lead for Sweden. So 2-1 after 2. U.S. has the hammer back. Very balanced situation. A team down 1 with the hammer is, that's about as close as you can get to a 50-50 spot. But what Sweden has successfully done is erase the advantage of starting without the hammer and taking a slight advantage for themselves. Let me throw up an ad real quick. Exactly, Dull. You got it. Put the numbers in the chat. I'm not sure how that would work. Unless you mean the score. I was talking about, he meant like numbering the rocks. Yeah. Two-one Sweden. We're starting the third end. 2-1 Sweden with the red rocks. I can leave it up for longer at the end of the end so you can see. All right. Isabella with a slight little bump there. Not that big a bump. Gonna move the rocks back just so there's a little room in case someone comes on top. They are not on the button. I'm gonna put them further back than they actually. Yeah, the yellow one's not quite that far back, but it doesn't matter. Important thing is there is room in front on the button there. I'll put the score after each end in the chat at the very least. All right, first rock for the U.S. coming in. My cat is very excited. They get it around the guard. And a more significant bump here. We've got these two with the U.S. rock, third rock, bumped a little further back. That's actually not a bad thing for the U.S. to put some separation between these two rocks. Makes it easier to make a play on this later if it's not dead frozen. Second rock for Sweden coming in. Everyone playing the outturn side. They're all coming down this side of the ice so far. There may be one side of the ice that the teams just prefer. We can keep an eye on that. If they're throwing the outturn on one way on like the even ends or the odd ends, and the in-turn on the even ends, kind of tells you they like something better. Okay. Top 8 rock for Rasmus there. Good position. It can be used later to be tapped in. They would have preferred it probably top button or even frozen to the yellow rock. And Corey Dropkin going to get to throw his next one now. These rocks are higher up. More like that. Absolutely. Happy to host this. Happy to give people another way to follow along if they're at work or don't have the streaming app you need wherever you are to watch the game. Corey Dropkin throwing his first rock now of the end. That's US's second rock. Corey going hard on his rock. I think they wanted to come inside here. This is light and going to crash on the guard. open things up a little bit. So Corey just moves this over a bit. That is not such a terrible thing for the U.S. since they left a hole here. As the hammer team, you don't love the fact that there's center guards in play. Again, we talked about how the hammer team would like a big scoring area. Having that center guard kind of forces the play to the center. We do end up with that a lot in mixed doubles, of course. Or in the airport, Scott, yes. Yes, I will explain how to get a point in a second, Blake. Dull Geek. No, one's not harder or easier. Some players have a preference for throwing one or the other. And if you like one side of the ice, if one side of the ice is just simply playing better than the other, you'll see they'll use their out turn more on one side and the in turn more on the other side. For a left-handed player, yes, they would be the out turns and in turns are reversed. We have a second guard, by the way, for Sweden. The out turn, in turn will be reversed. I like my out turn slightly better. I'm a lefty, which would be as the in turn for a righty. So the World Curling Federation actually put something in there like rules. The part of the rules it's like definitional that they no longer refer to in turn or out turn officially because they just use clockwise and counterclockwise. Because it's confusing if you don't know if you're talking about a righty or lefty. Even though, of course, like in real life, most curlers are righties. How do you score a point? Okay. If you've ever played lawn bowling, or bocce, it's the same scoring system. Whoever is closer to the pin, the middle of the house, gets the points. So right now, yellow would get the points. How many points do you get? Well, that's going to depend on how many rocks you have closer than the best rock for the other team. So right now, yellow has one. If this yellow rock wasn't here, red would have two because they have the two closest rocks. Corey Dropkin throws his rock right through this hole. Beautiful downweight hit. Bumps it. Gets rid of this rock. Very nice shot. Yellow rolls. Did it roll out entirely? Yeah, rolled out to the back here. Also, only rocks touching this paint can count. So no matter what happens, this rock right now would not count at all. Even if this red was gone, yellow would only get two. So that's a good shot for the U.S. because it clears up any... Red no longer has rocks in the front of the house to use. This yellow rock, very hard to get rid of. So if U.S. can get in again, they can bump this rock out pretty safely. They can also throw something lighter weight, just bump it slightly to get there too. So U.S. kind of in control in terms of scoring because they have this rock. How many they'll score will depend on if they can get to this rock with a little bit of weight to move this one. Looking to cover up this hole, Sweden throws a rock there. And U.S. has two rocks left. Sweden has one. They're looking at a few different ways to run these guards in, I think. Although, actually, Corey now taking a little bit more ice. He could be playing the draw now to try to play this little... No, I think, looking at the ice now that Corey TC's offering, I think it's a run on this yellow into the pile. They're not throwing a ton of weight. They just need to move this, a couple feet. But if you could somehow move it and keep this one in play, that's even better. Sit two. And Corey Dropkin. Oh, so close. Corey played this real good weight, real good throw, and it just skimmed by. No, it didn't hit it. Bad rocks. It just skimmed by and went through. unfortunately. Good effort. Did not make the shot. Did not make a very high difficulty shot. Oh, just they're showing it whiskered. Now, if it had just barely touched the yellow, it wouldn't help. So it probably missed by a quarter inch on this rock, which made it miss by, 6 inches down here of exactly what they wanted. So U.S. still sitting 1. It's this one right here on the button. That is a 1 point. Both teams have 1 rock left. Sweden throwing their final rock. Isabella Rano. Her brother Rasmus Rano sweeping. Trying to guard over here somewhere to take away another, because the U.S. could try that run again right now. A very high guard. She did get it over. It over curls. So it over curls, and I should note, this rock is further out now, actually. There is a hole here. It's going to depend on how they feel about the ice conditions. I imagine with the guards this side, they will feel they can throw enough weight to take it to the back of the house. You can get to this rock, bump the red, sit your 2. If they don't like that, there is the harder shot here, this run. But I think, while it is tricky, this one's a little further out, let's be clear. While it is tricky, you can get enough curl late to hit enough of this rock. Think they're playing the run back instead. This would have been very ambitious to come through the hole. We are playing the tap instead. Corey Dropkin going hard. Over curling. Hits this. No chance to move it in. 1 yellow. USA ties the game up 2-2. Your score is now 2-2. No problem, Dull Geek. Happy to help out. We have a 2-2 game now. So over curling. Basically, let's take a rock here. Let's pretend we're trying to hit this rock. And we're throwing it so the rock will curl this way. We want to hit it right here. If it curls too much, that's what we call over curling. Let's say it sailed right by. We'd say it under curled. It did not curl enough. So over curling means that it went past the point where we wanted it to curl. Under curling means that it did not bend enough, at least by the time we wanted it to get there. All right, I'm going to take this down. 2-2 game after 3 ends. So what has happened so far? Well, Sweden has successfully what we'd call flipped the hammer, because they got a deuce in the second. U.S. has 2 singles. We see, Sweden so far shooting 88%. U.S. throwing 73%. U.S. had a couple really high difficulty shots that brought their percentages down last end, but it is through Sweden probably playing a bit sharper right now. U.S. without hammer in the 4th end. You may hear the commentators. This is the game. Corey TC throws a good one in front of the red rock. Good way to start without hammer here. You may start hearing the commentators at this point in the game talk about having the hammer in the even ends. It is 2-2. USA 2, Sweden 2. Sweden has the hammer in the 4th end. You may start hearing them talk about the even ends and having the hammer in the even ends. Fourth end, maybe a little early to. We are yellow, of course, because Sweden never seems to be yellow in big games, which is very confusing. We are yellow without hammer. Um, yeah, you may hear them talk about even ends and the importance of having the hammer in the even ends. In a tie game, it is an advantage as you get later into the game, especially if this keeps up. Sweden scores here, US scores in 5, and if we're tied again in 6, then you really do have a bit of an added advantage. Having the hammer tied is always an advantage. Sweden's first rock comes in to the top of the 4-foot. I'll put it more exact. Got distracted by talking about other things. Simply because you can kind of, like, if you think about it for basketball, you can get a 2-for-1, right? If you're tied in the 6th end and you score in the 6th, they score in the 7th, you have it in the last end in the 8th. Now, the truth is, it's always an advantage to be tied with the hammer. The hammer is a pretty significant advantage. Yeah, a little higher here. Corey Dropkin trying to get around the guard, rubs the guard, leaves like a corner guard that shouldn't be a factor here. Just rubbed that guard. Just rubbing it means just touching it lightly. So bumped it over, it may be over maybe an inch or two. Like here. And this one came down to around here. They did. I was very glad Sweden had yellow in the semis. Yes, having the hammer first, having the last stone in the end, it means that you are going last. It is a significant advantage. It is a more significant advantage in 4-player curling, but it's still a fairly significant advantage in doubles as well. Sweden plays this little tap up. That was too hard, but I hate this automatic. Anyone who's been watching these streams know this is like the bane of my existence now, is this automatic tapping. I'm not sure who's counting right now, but that was a nice tap either way. Sweden with a lot of rocks in front of, sitting in front of the, it's definitely closer at the very least. I'm going to say Sweden's probably counting. It's close though. Having a lot of rocks in front of the T-line, in front of the button, is a good spot to be in. Because this guard moved, Corey Dropkin's going to throw a run. Wow, I did not see that as a... So Corey runs this rock. This ends up here. We have like a double corner guard, not that important. Hits this rock into here. Removes this one. Gone. Yellow rock runs in. Red one goes out. Yellow's sitting one now. Pretty open in the center. Oh, and of course, Corey's rock is also gone. So Sweden's got 3 rocks left. US has 2. This rock, though, as we said, having those rocks up front is helpful because now they can bump this back, which is exactly what Rasmus Rano is trying to do. With a nice soft weight. Oh, but it... undercurled. Remember we talked undercurl, overcurl? Hits it here. Gets a piece of this rock. Rolls out. Leaves the yellow back here. And leaves the red sitting open in the top 4-foot. So this red stone now, the US is very likely to at least force. A force means that you give up only one when the other team has the hammer, which would be a fine result. Corey Dropkin on his last rock, US's second to last rock, will try to hit this red rock out. Yeah, we'll talk about that when they go to the power play. We'll talk about why it's hard to defend, why it doesn't always go right, but why it's an advantage for the hammer team. Corey does make that hit, of course. So I understand why they generally go to ice skating on NBC. What I'm surprised by is, do they not have this game on like USA or some other network? Usually for gold medal game, they would show this. I mean, usually the curling's on all the time. They may just be counting on everyone having streaming, which is not true yet. And being like, we can throw it to stream. If the US wins, you're probably going to see some of this game tonight too. It is on USA at least. Okay, that's good. If you have cable in the United States, go to the USA network. No, not on USA. Well, yeah. Okay. Rasmus throwing his last rock. Not much. They're trying to draw behind these slightly unfortunate corner guards, which are a little tighter. They do not get there. They leave this open. Why do I say they're slightly unfortunate? Corner guards are good for the team with the hammer. This one is slightly on the rings, let's remember. Because they give up the hammer a place to hide without clogging up the center, without shrinking the scoring zone. So it's just a touch under. So that might start to give you a hint of why the power play is advantageous for the hammer team, just by saying that, but we'll talk about it more when someone uses the hammer. Oh dear. I do get why they show the ice skating. It is the premier event probably in the U.S. in terms of how many people watch, other than like a gold medal hockey game. But so on her last, Corey TC hits, and USA is yellow. Bryson, USA is yellow. Corey TC hits, rolls, does not quite get. They would have loved to have gotten like half under. So this is removed. If you get half under, now Sweden has to choose between drawing or hitting two rocks. They only where if you, they probably would try to throw the double. Would be the easiest if it was this buried. But if you try to hit just this one, you're likely to roll, and you could just tick this one, roll out. Both bad. Instead, she's about here, just over edge to edge. A little tricky. And the U.S. is sitting 4. While this is not a real great steal opportunity, last stone for Sweden with red, there is a little bit of pressure with the U.S. sitting 4 stones. So Minglism says, big end incoming. Score is 2-2, Cold Boy. USA 2 with the yellow stones, Sweden 2 with the red stones. Sweden throwing the hammer. So could be a big end. Unfortunately, if the U.S. had the hammer, it would be a huge end. But this is the power of having the hammer. All they have to do, outcount this stone. So Isabella Rano drawing this way. Rasmus seems to like the weight. Isabella's weight has been really good. The only issue, they are touching the yellow stone, but it's okay. This comes in, just touches, rubs off to about here. Red scores their point. And we got a shot of the mascot. Is it like a minx? I haven't actually listened to what the mascot is, but it's a very cute animal. Yeah, top of the house is the front of the house. Like these rocks are in the top of the house. These rocks are in the back of the house. If you come under a rock, you're going behind it. If you come over a rock, you're going in front of it. So 1 red, 1 for Sweden. It is 3-2 Sweden after 4 ends as we go to the break. So do we switch every game? No, we do not switch each end, what you're calling a game of an end, almost like an inning in baseball. We play 8 of these. The team that scores has to go first in the next end. So it doesn't necessarily switch. If the U.S. had scored there, the U.S. would go first again. Sweden would get to go last again because the U.S. scored. In mixed doubles curling, In mixed doubles curling, if you score 0, if nobody has a rock in the house, the hammer switches. That's different than in 4-player curling, where there's a bit of strategy around. The hammer team will often be happy to make a score of 0 because they get to keep the hammer and go last again. There are reasons why it works differently in both games. In mixed doubles, there are so many rocks in play that it is very difficult to blank anyway. And the starting rocks and the fact that you're not allowed to remove any rocks from play early do enough to keep tension in the end automatically. We don't want to remove blanks entirely from 4-player curling because they are a big part. This is a topic that's been talked to death in if you follow curling closely, but not if you haven't. Some people think, well, why don't we do that in 4-player curling? Why don't we let the hammer team, or make the hammer team give up the hammer if they don't score a point? Well, a lot of the tension in 4-player curling comes from the fact that the team without the hammer has to be very careful. They can't allow the hammer team to score a lot, but they also can't play so conservatively that the non-hammer team gets to, the hammer team just gets to blank the end and keep the hammer again and again. There are solutions considering, let's be nice in chat. Char's allowed to root for Sweden. He might still be in Sweden too. Saying go back to Sweden might not be helpful. We are also allowed to root for the U.S. though. So if you completely got rid of the blank in 4-player curling, or made it so that the other team got the hammer all the time, if you blanked, the non-hammer team would play super, super safe most of the time. They'd throw rocks in. You wouldn't really have guards. Yeah. Now, there are compromise solutions or creative solutions people are trying. The Grand Slams of curling are trying. You're allowed to blank once per game and keep the hammer, but after that you lose it. Not bad. That most of the time doesn't change the game at all, because while sometimes it feels like there's a lot of games with tons of blanks, most of the time there's no more than 1 per team anyway. It kind of eliminates the games where you see 4 or 5 blanks. On the other hand, you get games where all those blanks really ratchet up the tension and it isn't boring. Specifically, the Scotties, the women's final in Canada, their national championship final. Nobody was complaining about the blanks in that game. It really ratcheted up the tension. It was good. But yeah, I get it. I think Dull Geek, as you learn the game more, what you might really like is just how many rocks are in play, which it forces. You wouldn't really get that in 4-player curling if you eliminated blanks entirely. The 1 blank per team rule, though, might work out. It'll be interesting to see if that gets adopted more, if it gets altered more. Some blanks do feel like a waste of time. Some blanks, neither team is trying to score. Some blanks are very combative, and those are just as interesting as any other. They're more interesting and where both teams were really conservative and the hammer teams took 1 because it's just just to put a point on the board. Yeah, the blank first ends, and that might be what the that blanked first end might be what ultimately the 1 blank per game rule will do a lot to get rid of that boring first end not trying to score rule blanks. I wonder in 10 end games if maybe you have to make it 2 per team, but in 8 end games maybe 1 per team's good. Anyway, we're back to the action. They have their 5-minute break. And with a 3-2 lead, Sweden does not have the hammer. They are going first. They scored last end, so they're going first. This is the 5th end. Isabella Arano throws one right on the button. Kind of more like here. Corey TC follows it down with a slight tap. bumps it back. Leaves one, top button, very nice. And Rasmus Rano already throwing his first rock. Coming the other way here. This rock is more like here, this one back here. Comes in, plays his own little tap, bumps this to the side of the button, leaves a red rock in front. So this end, you'll see, even though the rocks are still pretty close, they're a little more spread out, right? There's a little more chance to remove things if you can get the right angle without losing rocks behind them. So both teams trying to sort of set up the angles here. In fact, if I make, they're pretty much staggered, where red, red, yellow, yellow. I don't know why I keep running out of yellow rocks. I literally only have 2 more yellow rocks on the strategy board. Like, if you run the rocks into each other off the sheet, sometimes they disappear, unfortunately. Okay, Corey comes in. Corey Dropkin bumps this red slightly, bumps it to the top button, releases this one to here. Yellow's still counting 1. Watching the captioning, the sideline reporter, so to speak, here, so they were talking to Phil Dropnik, the coach of the U.S. team, who says that, yeah, they left a couple points out there, haven't quite gotten the draw weight down yet. And that's probably true. Just slightly off, not by much. If they were way off, Sweden's playing great. If the U.S. was way off, they'd be losing badly, and instead we're in a very tight game here. U.S. is yellow, sorry. Sweden is red. It is the 5th end. Sweden leading 3-2. We're just starting the second half of the game. 5th end. We just came out of the 4th end break. Should have made a little tiny scoreboard in Excel and just overlaid it. We will remember that for the 4-player curling when we do these. And now we're back to, they were looking to get one frozen down on this. So this one, these are a little further off. Yeah. Trying to get these angles correct for you. This one overcurled slightly. One tricky thing here, especially in mixed doubles, is the angles are so important. Showing this on a strategy board and making it perfect is pretty hard. Pretty much dead covered there. Yellow sitting 1, US sitting 1. US has 3 rocks left. Sweden has 2 here in the 5th end. So Corey Dropkin throwing his 2nd rock. Coming down this side of the ice. Looks like another draw tap. Corey sweeping to hold the line. Bringing it in underneath the red and the yellow. That's a great spot. Gets a corner freeze on this red. Why is that a great spot? Well, if you ever want to remove this rock, you can. You can just hit your yellow now. It also makes it virtually impossible to play anything for red onto this rock because, well, now it's very tightly guarded. And in fact, even if you tried to run this stuff back here, you're almost certainly hitting a piece of this the way these are lined up. Okay, I'm out of yellow rocks is the biggest problem we have here. So as both teams have 2 rocks left. Hey, Cam from Duluth. Awesome, Nancy. I know the Corey's probably not as well as you. I know Corey dropped it a little better because I'm from Connecticut. When he was a junior, of course, he played at our club quite a bit in like Bonspiels. I met him, up in that area. And I have played Corey and Corey on tour. I play some tour doubles at like a relatively low level. My partner and I were ranked as high as like 158th in the world this year, but we have played Corey and Corey. Corey and Corey beat us. Shocking. Beat us 9-1. I got the pregame. I got the hammer. I dropped it in the pregame draw to the button. They proceeded to steal 3 even after my partner drew the button because she got a piece of the button and was still 4th shot. They stole 3 in the second to make it 6-0. We were sitting good in the third, and Corey TC caught a sliver of a rock to push it in and remove one of our rocks to then steal 3 again to make it 9-0. We took the power play in the 4th, scored 1, went inside, had a drink with them. That was the end of the game. Oh, that's great. Yeah. All right, luckily I don't need... US peels this rock. This rock goes out. Did not eat a yellow rock because the yellow rock rolled out. So we've been saved. Yeah, didn't get enough curl on that. They were looking kind of maybe to run the red in there, loosen up some rocks, but did at least get it out of there, potentially opening up maybe something for 2. It's going to be very difficult for the US to get 2, but they are likely to get 1 here. He has huge energy. The score, 3-2 Sweden. 3-2 Sweden, 5th end. US with hammer here, looking very likely with 1 rock left for each team. That the US will score 1. So, Spencer, good question. No, they can shake early. I think they have to play at least 6 ends. But in this game, this is so close. I would be shocked if it goes less than 7. I'm expecting it to go 8. It can go 9. If it's tied after 8, they will play a 9th end. In men's and women's curling, they play 10 ends at the Olympics still. World Championships, National Championships are 10 ends. And they must play 6 in the round robin and 8 in the medal rounds. Based on the fact that there were games that shook after that like the Sweden Great Britain game shook after 7, and they weren't technically out of rocks left because they were only doing 6. I think the 6 end rule is probably the rule. Yeah. So they do not flip for hammer in at this level. It was based on seeding. The U.S. came into the medal rounds higher seeded than Sweden, so they got the hammer in this game. In club play though, yeah, you just flip so you get the hammer. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I haven't updated. The guard was thrown back really higher. Corey TC drawing this side, looking to somehow to get a bite. It's very close. Doesn't get enough of the button though. Came in, bumped this back, rolled off slightly. It'll be 1 yellow. US will tie it up 3-3. So let's get back to chat. I will answer some questions here. So yeah, how do they get the hammer in the game? How can the USA score 2 here? If that draw was dead perfect, maybe there was marginally a chance there. You get the hammer when the other team scores. Or in doubles, if there's no score, the hammer flips also. So Sweden will have the hammer now because the US just scored. Yeah. Yeah, Dolgy, I don't think anyone finds Dropka obnoxious because he's not doing it on like every shot. He's doing it on if there's an extra end, whoever didn't score in the last end gets the hammer in the extra end. He is a gem. He has a lot of energy. It's very authentically him. It's very genuine. The energy is appreciated. Now, you do that during other people's shots. You cheer when other teams miss. You are moving around and talking a lot when someone's trying to deliver a stone. Then you'll start to, get on the nerves of other teams. Cheering for a mid shot has always been. It used to be a little more subdued, but even you can look at clips from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and teams who made big shots in big moments were still celebrating them, of course. You don't want to be overly boisterous all the time, but Corey's celebrating the big shots, the big makes, winning games. Of course, you can celebrate that. Yeah. What does the power play mean? All right, well, let me go in order of these questions here as I see them. I notice they often, Potato Alex asks, often end with the stones all in one line or close to it. What is the strategic reason for that? It's because of the way doubles is set up. Because you start with 2 pre-placed rocks, it really brings the play to the center. So a lot of times both teams are looking to get to the center. What is the power play? Well, the power play is what Sweden's using here in the 6th end in a tie game. Using their power play. And the U.S. drew in here. Power play moves the rocks to the side of the sheet. The hammer team's rock goes in front of the tee line instead of to the back of the forefoot, making it harder to freeze on. More importantly, the corner guard and this rock pull the play away from the center a bit. I've talked about this earlier. The team with the hammer would love to have a lot of room to score in, and this allows them to do that. This allows them, in theory at least, to have a big, wide open area in which to play to score, instead of being forced into a tiny area where both teams are fighting for every inch, every millimeter. Now, if the other team uses the power play, if the U.S. was winning, you would have seen a tick on this rock to try to open this up. But that's a very defensive play. And in a tie game with only 3 ends left, where Sweden actually has a slight advantage here because they have the hammer, and in the even ends, they are likely to get the hammer in 6 and 8, and the U.S. may only have it in 7. The U.S. can't afford to play quite that defensively, so they throw a rock in here. In mixed doubles, the first 3 rocks of the end, you aren't allowed to hit anything out, so you can kind of safely do that. They would have been happy with a guard. They would have probably liked this a little deeper, but in any case, they have the counter. It couldn't be removed yet. And now that the second Swedish stone dropped behind the tee line, they're going to try to throw a freeze. They pretty much do. Corey TC ticks this rock, bounces this one a few inches. This one moves over maybe an inch or 2 because she ticked it. And the U.S. is sitting, I believe, 1-2, or sorry, 1-3. This is a little higher up. I believe they are 1-3. I believe this rock was out counting the side rock already. I'll double check that. 8 ends. This is the current house setup. They are playing the 6th end. Yes, lots of cheering at the appropriate times. And on a big miss, close shot, or great shot at the club, you can often hear people in the war room going, "Oh, I was wrong. This is actually the last counter." I lost a U.S. rock again. Way to go. All right, little tap here by Rasmus. And now I have a commercial on Peacock, so thankfully they took the commercial off. This one slipped half under. This rock kind of like right here. And I do want to see, I'm going to guess this is still 5th rock. I'd have to take a closer look. Corey TC right now squatting over this rock, so it's kind of hard for me to tell. And that momentary commercial break on Peacock did not help. Corey going to play a hit on this, maybe play the double to hit both of these and sit 2, possibly 3. Does not quite get the double there. In fact, almost made this double. This red rock did go away. This one rolls to the back. I believe far enough that yellow is 1-2, because this Yellowstone may be more like there. Yeah. If they give me an overhead view. Yeah. So this one's like full 8 foot. This one's just outside of just touching a bit of the 12-foot circle. In theory, James, if there's no steals, yeah. If nobody steals, it 8 ends, Cammy. They play 8 ends. This is the 6. This is the current house setup. 3-3. Sweden with the red rocks using their power play here on the 6th end. If it goes 9 right now, but Dull Geeks also. Yeah, probably the most. But yeah, if say the U.S. takes Sweden takes 1, U.S. takes 2, Sweden takes 1 and 8 would be the way this the way they would end up in a 9th end, or 3, 2, and 1, something in that range. Sweden hits this yellow one right through, leaving them sitting 1 again. Almost caught a piece of this, which is what they really wanted. If you catch a piece of this, all you have to do is move it a few inches to sit 2. You move it even, you move it more like a foot and you sit 3. But instead, just 1 right now. Just 1 right now for Sweden. Both teams have 2 rocks left. Corey Dropkin, I imagine, going to try to double these 2 reds and leave the U.S. sitting 2 with only 1 red stone in play. There are other ways you could play this, but I think that's what they're going for. Yeah, with this weight, that is definitely what they're going for. Corey on. The sweep must be close. He was on, off, on, off. Just didn't get over there enough. Looks like he's trying to push it. Kicked it through. U.S. sitting 1 and 3 now. I'm going to move this just enough so it's obvious this outcounts it. Most importantly, I want you to be able to see who's counting. It's impossible because these rocks are a little too big to make a perfect house, but yeah. Yeah, there's still a lot of ways this could play out with only 3 ends left. I can tell you from experience, especially when you play very good teams, power play is very difficult to defend. We have seen steals in the power play this week. The U.S. in particular had some trouble at times with their power play. However, that generally happens when the team at the power play really needs to score because they are behind. And so they're willing to take chances to try to build a big end. And if that means they have to play a long run back or some difficult double, then they'll do that. And if they miss, they're going to give up a steal. Generally very difficult to steal on the power play, especially in a close game, or especially when you're behind. Getting a steal is difficult. A big steal is difficult. Okay, Rasmus threw big weight, was trying to throw this double, almost had a disaster. He hits this yellow rock, just slips it under the back red. He did not want to lose that back red as well. And, of course, with that much weight, lost his red. Still leaves the U.S. sitting 1. There are a lot of ways. I did not see the shot call. There are a lot of ways you can pretty much guarantee that you are giving up only a force. One of which would be to draw around your rock anywhere except popping out this side. You can be dead buried. You can be a little bit on this side of the rock. You don't want to get a little deep and a little out here, where you might leave a double on your 2 yellows. 3-3 game. Nobody's winning. It is 3-3. If you're talking about in this end, yellow, the U.S. team is sitting 1 point right now. This stone is the counting stone. Corey Tesi throwing her last rock. Needs to outcount this stone. That is the first goal. Must outcount this stone. Put it somewhere safe is a very important goal. Secondly, third goal, get it buried where maybe you can set up a steal. Very good shot. Gets it underneath. Gets it just a sliver underneath. About parallel with this one. Maybe slightly higher. So you can't double them either way. You also did not want to end up here where there might be this double. Actually, pretty much dead parallel right here. Just a tiny bit under. So, making Sweden throw a good shot for 1 here, which is not easy to do with the power play. The power play went very poorly. Yeah, I'd say forcing 1 on a power play is a pretty big win. So we talked about how maybe it's overrated, this like kind of older idea that forcing 1 is a big win for the team without hammer. As I said, that's kind of the most neutral, fair result. If you force 1 with a power play, though, you've done a really good job. And there is potential for a steal here. Sweden not going to throw a big weight hit because you don't want to roll out. Rasmus pushing this to curl, but it looks pretty good. Unless it's light. Is it light? They're trying to get it. They did get just enough there to bump it. Rasmus they get the lightest of bumps there. 1 red. U.S. will be happy giving up 1 with the power play here because they still have their power play, which they are going to use now in the 7th, almost certainly. I mean, actually, certainly. If they can get 2 or more, they have a good chance of winning this game. If they score or give up a steal of 1, they still have a reasonable chance of winning this game. If they score 1 or give up 1, they are still in the game. They will be in a tougher spot. But in a tie game, there are more steals in doubles than there are in 4-player curling, so they certainly could steal in 8. If they happen to give up a steal of 1, having the hammer down 2 is not the end of the world in doubles by any means, although that would be a fairly significant advantage to Sweden. So unless there's an absolute disaster here for the U.S., we're right in the game. But same for Sweden. Unless Sweden gives up a big end here, they will also be in the game. So should be an exciting finish. Going to throw an add-on before we get the 8th end. Sure enough, we did get the power play. I'm going to move the rocks to the side of the ice they're on. And Sweden, looking just not to give up a big end, very sensible, plays the tick shot. So you are not allowed to remove any rocks with the first 3 rocks of each end in mixed doubles. However, your shooter can go out of play. So what Sweden wanted to do there was make sure they have access to this rock later when they are allowed to remove it. Try to limit how much offense the U.S. can put together here. The only downside to this, it does make it very, very possible for the U.S. to get a deuce. because you're not really doing anything aggressively. Oh, Corey TC. Oh, no. Corey TC throws the draw, trying to split the house. The goal was to keep 2 in, split the house, throws it to the back line. That rock will not, I mean, no way to bring that back into play. Not yet a disaster because they can't hit this rock yet. And this rock does not outcount this one either. But really wanted to get 2 in that Sweden couldn't hit right away. Sweden now can try to set up something in the center and make it more like a traditional mixed doubles end if they can get some rocks in that the U.S. will have difficulty dealing with, especially if they can bury around this rock. Now, it looks like they're not quite going to do that. They draw to the corner of the button. Going to move this over just because even though this rock is well within the 4-foot lines, again, these rocks are too big. The U.S. does have access to the stone. Well, actually, it is just edge to edge, maybe an inch overlapped. So Corey Dropkin going to try to make this hit, or maybe a soft hit. Looks like they're actually going to play it as a freeze or a tap. A freeze makes sense. It'll put a lot of pressure on Sweden because the U.S. will be sitting second and third. It is a pretty big advantage. You're not wrong. But the teams know this. It's much like any other overtime. Although you could compare it to the NFL where they've changed the overtime rules to try to make it less advantageous to have the ball first over the years. But yeah, it's always been just one end. Some of the scoreboard manipulation, especially in the 4-player game, you can try to make sure that you're in a position to where the worst realistic situation is you'll get the hammer in the extra end. It's a good question. So it puts a little pressure on, I should say a little pressure on Sweden. Puts a little pressure on Sweden because this rock is going to be difficult to get rid of. It kind of makes, what Sweden just did was they hit this rock. And why did Sweden hit a rock that wasn't even counting? And it rolled all the way over here. Because if you leave this rock in play and you can't get rid of this rock, you're starting to put a big end in a potential for a big end in play, right? This rock alone threatens to allow the U.S. to get 2 because they can hit, roll away, sit 2. And it's going to be very difficult for this rock to ever leave without this rock leaving first. So, Sweden could have guarded and taken their chances, but you're taking a big chance if the U.S. is sitting second shot and third shot at that point. That if the U.S. makes something, now they're threatening to get 3. Sweden really, really doesn't want to give up a 3 here. Sweden will live with a 2 and try to win it in the 8th by getting their deuce. But Sweden does not want to give up a 3. Okay, not a bad result. Corey Dropkin hits here. This one rolls behind the guard. This goes away. And again, yellow sits third shot over here. And the big thing is this rock now behind the guard. Sweden has to play this run. Very makeable, not super long. But if you ever miss, 3 is back in play because the U.S. can remove this rock and sit 3. 2 rocks left for both teams here in this end. Oh, you got them over. Oh, I didn't see individual team overs. 7.5? 7.5 is going to be tough, but not impossible. I will tell you what you're rooting for here. You're kind of rooting for the U.S. to... Oh, that was a nice shot. You're going to root for the U.S. to get 3 here. Sweden to tie it 6-6, and then the U.S. to maybe take 2 in the extra end to win. They played this run. Bang, bang. Lost both of these rocks. That's the only thing that was less than ideal, but pretty darn good. And this one's also gone. US has 2 rocks left. This one is sticking out slightly. So actually, we might, if you can get rid of this and keep the shooter, or bump this open and keep the shooter, at least it puts pressure on, because you're then sitting second and third, and you have to make Sweden worry about giving 3. Corey seems to like this. Oh, I'm sorry. And the US rock jammed here. Great shot by Corey. That changes everything at the US rock jam there. He makes this bump, gets it out, rolls over. US now sitting 3. Sorry for the fact that this stayed and that red bumped out changed Rasmus's last shot from a great shot to actually a pretty poor shot. US now sitting 3. 1 rock left for each team. Yes, Siri, thank you. Well, you could get that over 7.5 now, Uncle, quick, because if the US scores 3 here, they could steal 2 in the last end, or Sweden could tie it, and the US could take a bunch. Not sure if Sweden... Now, Sweden is, I assume... Maybe not. I thought Sweden would play this double to try to give up 2. Yeah, there is big end potential here, Ming. You are right. Yes, that's what I thought. Isabella Rana playing the double here. Willing to give 2. And does make the double. Big shot by Isabella Rana. Doubles these 2 yellows out. That was a must make to keep Sweden in decent position here. Need to see the replay. Is Sweden counting or not? Sweden did get a little roll in, so they are counting. This guard is nowhere near in play. I'm going to put it over here just to make that clear. So open hit for 2 for the US. Corey TC needs to hit that rock, stay anywhere on the paint to get 2 points for the US, make it 5-4. US would be in pretty good shape. Yeah, I can't set that up now to put the score up. That would be great. But I will do that. I will make sure I have a score bug of some sort for the 4-player curling when I do this. Corey TC makes the open hit for 2. The score, which I will update in chat. Oh, thanks, Arkan. 5-4 USA after 6. After 7, sorry. Sweden has hammer in 8th end. And because I have a moment, I'm going to run an ad before the... So James on hits says, if it goes 9th and USA has hammer, is it pretty likely they win by 2 because it forces Sweden to have to make big plays to avoid giving up 1? There's certainly a chance of that. So a few common situations are, like if Sweden would have to, does not get in really good position early, they may leave the US with like an open hit for multiple, or they may have to make some hard run back. They miss, and the US gets a few points. But also very common is Sweden is in a decent to very good position where the US would have to throw 1 rock, like draw for 1 at the end. There's a chance to go, the hammer could score 1 or more in the final end. Yeah, Marco, Sweden will be pushing hard for the 2 here. They don't want to go to the extra end down one, a tied without hammer. It is not as hard as in 4-player curling to steal when the other team knows you are trying to steal. That's less of a problem in doubles because all the rocks are already in the center, but not ideal. Sorry, I got to switch the rocks. Sweden is red. This rock got bumped back here. Corey TC's first rock, a little bump, stays in front of it. If this goes to an extra end tied with US with hammer, it's advantage US, not as big an advantage as in the 4-player game, where at the top levels, especially in men's play, it is extraordinarily hard to steal when when the other team knows you have to steal to win the game. At this point, slight advantage USA. Slight advantage USA being up one without is a slight advantage even in doubles. I thought I saw a number that's maybe 54%, 57%, something like that. It's been an extremely evenly played match as Isabella Arano bumps to sit one. Sweden has hammer. Yeah, Sweden at the slightest of disadvantages. And I say that, it's actually not that different than the 4-player game once you get to the final end with a 1-point lead. There's a lot of numbers out there. It's pretty similar. You could call it a coin flip, though. You would not be wrong. Saying it's a slight advantage would be like if they played 100 games, the U.S. would win a few more from this position. Why is it an advantage? Because it's mostly because if the U.S. gives up one, they have a fairly significant advantage in the 9th end. Sweden not unlikely to get 2, though. Most of Sweden's wins will come if they get 2. Some of their wins would come in an extra end. Most of the U.S. wins will come in an extra end. Some will come if they steal in 8. So that one comes up a little short for Corey Dropkin, but it's not in a bad spot. Again, we've talked about this a little bit. Anything around the center line, right in front of the forefoot, in front of the button, gives you something to work with. You can tap this later, right? Yeah. I do not, Alex, but if you have Peacock or if you're in Canada, CBC Gem is streaming it, I believe, is the name of the service. But after this shot, I would say slight advantage Sweden, just because it didn't quite get there. Not a big advantage. If it was a bad miss, Sweden would have a big advantage because they could just throw another one in and sit 2 under guard in front of the T line without that yellow rock to help. Sweden tries to come in. They do crash on the guard a little bit. Leave these 2 out front. The fact that this got bounced a little bit, the U.S. is, I believe, just called their timeout. So if you don't know, both teams do get a timeout in curling. You can bring the coach out. It also just gives you more time to discuss because it stops the clock for a minute plus the time it takes for your coach to get out there. For those of you wondering, if you don't have a coach, that would never be an issue at the Olympics, obviously. You're playing at a regional playdown to go to a nationals or something and you don't have a coach, you still get a set amount of time that it would theoretically take for your coach to get there. So it's not unfair. One possibility here is you could just tap this up onto here and make it real hard to get to. They're also looking at this, which I think is very reasonable because this is not quite angled as much. You could run this red, just clip the edge of it. This red will go out this way. This red would go out that way. And the advantage of doing this first is you'd like to leave this yellow stone to use later. So chances are, while you want to make this shot at some point, US has 3 shots left. You run this back, not much danger unless you undercurl if you hit this and it sort of double jams, but it would be hard to do that. And even in that case, you'd still have this rock to use later. USA is up by 1. Sweden is red. I am glad people are enjoying this. So online sportsbooks have Sweden at plus 200 to win. You could, if Dropkin makes this shot, I would say I would not take it. If somehow if it's a bad miss, jam that right away. Okay, that's not bad at all. Yeah, actually, that's not great. I thought he got more movement there. All right, so we hit this one, jams. This goes out here. The yellow rock's still somewhere in the back of the house. I'll have to check. This red's gone. I need to see some. Yep, so yeah, this yellow way back here. And the yellow that was used to hit is gone. All right. Now I really like Sweden at plus 200, Dave, if you can still get that. Unfortunately, as an American, rooting for our team. This stone is keeping the U.S. with pretty good chances, though, because it can be used late to tap up to, yeah. And you have a guard still to come around. You can still come around everything. Plus 200, though. Plus 215 now. All right, Dave, get some bets in. Plus 215. This is the final end. Unless Sweden scores exactly one, then we will have an extra end. Sweden now using their timeout. Oh, I can't pull up something different. I was going to pull up something else, but I can't, or I'll lose the strategy board. We must keep the strategy board. How many viewers do we have right now? 319 viewers. Thank you all for watching. Glad I could get you all a way to watch this or a little extra commentary. Unfortunately, I'd say definitely advantage Sweden right now. If you're a U.S. fan. Not an overwhelming advantage, though. For sure. Probably too late for me to... Yeah, I to get a bet in on Sweden. I have friends texting me saying I'm going to puke watching this because it's so nerve-wracking. Sweden coming out of their timeout. Looks like for now, I can't imagine. Maybe they did want to just throw the guard. Maybe that was the shot. I'd have to see if someone's listening to the commentary if that was the shot call. The problem is now you have this little run, and now you're under cover. U.S. maybe can sit 1-3, play it soft. Or, as they said, you can save this for now and draw in. This one's more on the button. Try to draw in back here. That looks like what they're going to try first. That is not the shot made. That was just for demonstration purposes only. Freeze is the call. You could freeze it. If anyone wants to give me HBO money, super chats are available. For anyone loving the coverage. USA trying to get around. I'm sure they'll take the tap if they need to. They get around, but it's big. They get around, but all the way back here. Very unfortunate. The thing is, it was better than just nicking that rock. Because right now where this rock is, it could still be used on USA's last rock. If you nick it a few inches under the guard, it's a lot harder to use. So, still definitely a usable rock. But USA only one shot left. Sweden, 2 rocks left. Sweden looking to sit 2 here. Yeah, these odds on Sweden are ridiculous. I'm looking really quick at what places are offering. Sweden's still being treated as the underdog, although I see mostly lines are off. But okay, Sweden comes down, leaves the red rock here. Not that big a tap. That would have been a problem. All right. A couple different options. You can play into these stones, bump this out. This will be under cover, under a lot of cover. You will leave red like second, third, fourth. Maybe not. You can nose this and maybe this goes away. You'll leave red maybe just second. The other option would have been to try that draw again. But now you're getting real risky. I mean, you have no more shots after this. I think the goal here, nose this red rock, get the yellow onto the red, push the red out, or at least past this yellow so that it can't count. Hopefully this red isn't counting. Corey TC throwing the last rock of regulation for the U.S. team. Yeah, Dave, again, the rocks are too big. I can't get the angles right. Corey Dropkin really trying to curl this, really trying to curl this. Oh. The U.S. is sitting one, but it did not curl as much as they wanted. And this rock popped out a little bit. And unfortunately, Sweden is both second and third. This rock is not wide open, but it is open. A little more than half open, it looks like. Maybe a little less as a right-hander looking at it. Isabella Rano can get rid of this rock, can clip it out. Sweden wins. If she fails to clip it out, the U.S. will probably win because it's very hard to see a way in which Sweden only gets one. Clips it out for two. Bumps it out. Sweden gets there too. Your champions with a deuce in the eighth there. Sweden takes mixed doubles gold. Isabella and Rasmus Rano beating Corey and Corey in the final. Yep, those are the final two counting Red Rocks. Great game. Both teams played well. Just a couple misses in the eighth end for the U.S. Unfortunately, but still a great run for Corey and Corey. Great run for Sweden. Congrats to them. Oh, you're welcome, Siri. I will see you tonight. Siri playing with me in our competitive league tonight at the Nutmeg Curling Club. You can watch streaming tonight, 7 and 9 p.m. Eastern draws at the Nutmeg Curling Club YouTube page to watch some decent but not great curling. Good, solid curling, but nothing like the Olympics. Yeah, absolutely welcome. If anyone wants to throw a super chat in, I had a couple on my first stream when I had like 5 people. Now I had hundreds of people and not a single one. That's okay. I'm going to throw one last ad up on the way out to make a little more money. Boop. I will also give you one more look at my cat at the end. Okay, if the ad's over and you're getting me back, hopefully. John Harris asks, what do you think of the hit call on the last U.S. Stone? I think it was the right call. I think you just have to, it was a tough shot. If you make it, it's going to be very hard for Great Britain for Sweden hit back. I don't usually stream on Twitch. I have streamed on Twitch once in a blue moon playing games. I played some competitive Tetris at a very low level, lower level than I played curling at for sure. Got into that after after Tetris got in the news. The U.S. did just lose. Sweden wins by 1. Sweden took 2 in the 8th to win the game by 1. Sweden takes gold. U.S. takes silver. Italy takes bronze. Great Britain. Someone said it was heartbreak for them to end up without a medal to show for their dominant round robin performance. Yeah, tough one for Great Britain not getting a medal. Definitely played outstanding in the round robin, but lost twice. I mean, I can understand some people like a lot of high level curling competitions use a page playoff, where if you're one of the top 2 teams, you play each other and you can lose. The winner goes straight to the final, and the loser gets to play the winner of 3-4 to go to the final. In this case, if Great Britain lost twice, they'd still end up and they might have one more chance to win a bronze, but that's it. Yep, still have men's and women's Forest coming. Quick preview, because we have a lot of people still watching here. We have still over 100 people in the chat. Quick preview for if you're wondering if you're not a curler. On the women's side, Rachel Homan out of Canada will be the favorite. The betting odds have her as a huge favorite. I think that's overstating it. They haven't been quite as dominant as last season. They are still the best team in the world. But the Tirinzoni rink out of Switzerland is also on that same top tier with Sweden and Korea, the 3 and 4 teams in the world. So it should be a great field. U.S. Team Peterson did get in through the qualifier. This year, the way they're playing, probably a long shot to medal, unfortunately, but great that they got in. And no reason they can't beat anyone on any given night. So, it'll be a fun team to watch. Oh, thanks, Hino. Appreciate the $2, the super chat. Yay! 1 because of your commentary, 1 on betting. Thank you. Yeah, if you got in on the betting for betting Sweden in the 8th end, was halfway through the end, was probably a smart idea. Unfortunately for us 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 fans. So those are your big hitters and where the US stands in women's. In men's, the favorite is Bruce Mowat, who you've seen play doubles for Great Britain here, and now he's taking his team into the men's as the favorite. Brad Jacobs' team out of Canada, also one of the big favorites. Plenty of other very strong teams, though. Switzerland, Sweden, both very good. Who am I forgetting? There's another top contender I haven't mentioned, or at least a second tier contender. Switzerland, Sweden, maybe Norway. What am I thinking? Danny Casper is the skip of the men's team for the U.S., though. That's what for U.S. fans to follow. They will be certainly a medal contender, I think. They are probably the 6th best team in the field, but very strong. Been playing great. To get in here, they had to go through the qualifier, but they were pretty dominant there, which was good to see. Definitely a live team, more of a chance of medaling than the U.S. women, but we'll see. Both teams have some chances. It's curling, and these teams are all pretty strong. I'm sorry. Of course, U.S. men on the men's side, also Italy. I was like, not Norway. I knew it wasn't Norway, but Italy. Joel Rontarens out of Italy. Definitely a medal contender at home as well. So that'll wrap up the coverage for now. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Wow, had several hundred viewers at one point and thousands of views total. Appreciate it. And hope to see you again, guys, for the men's and women's finals, if nothing else. Maybe we'll do some other games too. Those didn't get as huge crowds, but we'll definitely consider streaming some of those as well with the strategy board. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the men's, women's curling, and thanks for watching.